kicking off next week there in the city of Asheville. Meanwhile, a lot of us are kind of feeling like, is it ever going to cool down? Are we ever going to get back into the more fall-like feeling? And look at this, potential record highs where we see all of these dots. This is through next Wednesday, so we're really stuck in that very warm, above-average pattern as we head all the way into the middle of next week. As mentioned, as we talked about, a little cool down, but some of us are not even going to get that. Look at your temperatures right now. I mean, mid-80s from Miami up through Jacksonville over to Houston. Nashville, you're even sitting in the lower 80s. So Nashville and Miami, you're nearly the same temperature right now. That is not typically what you would expect for late October. Into the weekend, we are going to have those temperatures remaining 10 to 20 degrees above average, especially along that I-20, I-10 corridor. I mean, San Antonio, 90s for you as we head into the last weekend of October here. Dallas, Jackson, New Orleans, 80s for all of you. Now, the wider picture shows what's going on. That jet stream is displaced well off to the north. It's keeping all the cooler air there north of that jet stream. So south of it, high pressure is in control, and it is going to intensify in some places. Now, I will say, as we do get that jet stream to dip down, it's going to allow us to get some cooler air, a little bit of a different change in the pattern across our western states. So maybe you have that to look forward to as we head into early next week. But in the meantime, much of the country, as you look especially east of the Mississippi down into the southern plains, it is still going to be very, very warm. No big changes in sight in terms of those temperatures really taking a big dip. So widespread records possible over the next 5 days. As mentioned, all those little dots centered around the Great Lakes region all the way down through the southern plains, but we are watching the Four Corners region for that possibility as well. So your forecast on Saturday, Atlanta mid-80s, same thing in New Orleans, Jacksonville, Tampa, Miami mid-80s for you. Sunday, you'll notice it's a little bit cooler for places like Raleigh, Atlanta, and Nashville as you get some of the impacts of that front, but it's still, it's still not where we would expect to be when we're talking late October for a lot of these places, Mike.
It doesn't look or feel like it at all.
Season, of course, the initial forecast for this, blockbuster season. And when we started to see a little bit of a lull here and what would typically be peak season, people kind of started questioning that. But what you'll see has happened since then is we have shot up above average for accumulated cyclone energy. And what does that mean? It's basically a measurement of all of the energy of the storms that we've seen in the Atlantic basin. And you can see we're well above average at this point in the season with still 11% left of hurricane season. And, from what we've seen so far with this year, I would not let my guard down, especially with what we're watching. Now, late October, so through the end of this month, you see where we typically see some of the development out in the central Atlantic, in the western Caribbean. It's the same thing as we head into November. You're especially seeing some of that development in the Caribbean, where you've still got that warm water and slightly warmer temperatures. Now, when we do see systems develop in November, sometimes they push right over the Bahamas, so that's something to watch.
Might gets a little bit cooler for us, and I have become in the last couple of years like a tree aficionado on like the ones I like for fall. And I have learned, especially there around New York, you know what they have? A lot of ginkgos. Okay. Yellow. Oh my gosh. The yellow is spectacular.
I was getting ready to say that little green lizard. No, just kidding. Is that
Geico, ginkgo? It's all the same.
Thing. Is that the ones? Are those the main ones that turn yellow, like the vibrant yellow?
Well, like in the West, those are aspens.
Okay.
But I've noticed apparently a lot of trees in New York that are yellow, and they have a lot of them on the streets, are ginkgos, and they're really bright. It's really cool.
You learn something new every day. This isn't just weather unfiltered. This is trees.
Yes, we're arborists here. Arborists unfiltered.
Threshold of cold, right? But it's been very warm. Now, we do have a little front that's moving through, and it's going to bring us a bit of a cool down. Now, it's funny because yesterday when I was looking at this front, I was like, man, it's not looking so impressive. Right around this same time, it didn't have a ton of rain with it. Of course, it did bring some storms later on in the evening and into the overnight. But again, just not looking very impressive in terms of the moisture. We would love some rain, especially across the northern Ohio Valley into West Virginia, portions of Ohio across that state. You really need some rain at this point. You're not getting much of it. I guess we'll take whatever little sprinkle we can get, but man, it would be great if we could get some more, right? Look at that rain moving through overnight tonight through West Virginia. That's going to make its way through the Shenandoah Valley. A little bit of that trailing front giving us some rain there in Kentucky. Some showers going to stick around across the Great Lakes because you'll get that kind of flow coming across there and bring us just a little bit of rain. But in general, this is a pretty dry frontal passage for areas that could really use some rain. Now, it is going to cool us down just a little bit. Today, we've got those highs 10, 20 degrees above average for Kentucky, Tennessee, Tennessee up through Ohio. Now, once that front moves through this weekend, you're going to get a bit of a cool down, and you'll notice some blue showing up on the map here. The blue is indicative of areas where we'll have some slightly below average temperatures. So that's what we're seeing, but it's not going to be anything crazy. It's not going to be like 20 degrees below average. You're not going to notice some huge change, but you will notice a little bit of a change. In Syracuse, we're going from the mid-50s Saturday and Sunday up to the upper 50s on Monday. You've got some rain Saturday morning, and then it should clear out Sunday and Monday. Sunday might be the better day of your weekend. And then, Mike, in Buffalo, you can see the temperatures dip just a bit, and it's going to be nice, but then we start to warm right back up.
All right. Well, it's up, it's down.
Have fun without worry. That's what the meerkats do too. So that's great, right? You need some friends like meerkats. Now, maybe you're planning out your Halloween because we are edging closer to that. Some festivities going to be this weekend. Some will be next weekend, of course, and then some will be the actual day of Halloween. This is what we're looking at next Thursday. We're going to have the warm air across the southeast, southern portions of the country again, but we are going to be watching a storm system. So it's going to help to bring some cooler air south as that jet stream begins plunging southward for Halloween. 5 to 10 degrees below average for much of the western portions of the country, but still above average as you look across the northeast, that 95 corridor in terms of those temperatures. Some of us, though, are going to be having to watch out for a little bit of rain. Here's what we're looking at. 90s as you look really, really far south, 80s for a lot of us, but 60s and 70s across the middle portions of the country, back through southern areas of the Four Corners region, and then chilly 30s and 40s for portions of the Pacific Northwest as we're watching that system. Here's the outlook for it. Now, this is a broad brush forecast, so you'll want to check back in terms of, will it be raining? Will you need that rain jacket for your little ghosts and ghouls and goblins? Well, rain is possible as that front swings through Thursday. You'll just have to time around it. A lot of these areas really, really need the rain, so I think a lot of people won't be too upset about it, but it's just going to be a matter of planning around it, right? So where we could see those showers stretching from portions of the Great Lakes all the way down into the Gulf Coast region, heading into the evening, you can see those temperatures, Mike, still very, very comfortable. You know, Halloween can get really cold sometimes, so I think a lot of people won't be too unhappy about the above average temperatures.
Nope, not bad. Still warming up here in late October. Here's a look here on the map of some of that fall heat that's boiling over the next few days. But if you're in the Northeast, you're enjoying a nice but brief cool down thanks to a cold front.
I'm not upset about the warm temperatures, but I know there are so many people who want just a little taste of fall, and they're going to get it. Get a little taste.
In fact, if I look at Wednesday's forecast next week, that's a little too warm for a lot of us for Thanksgiving. But if you're behind all those colors, it's going to be a nice cool front just in time for Halloween.
Can I tell you, you said Thanksgiving, and I just want to say,
Oh, I got hungry all of a sudden.
I know. I was like, man, I'm really excited.
I should have eaten a bigger lunch.
We're almost to Thanksgiving.
All right, I gotta start Halloween candy.
You got the munchies, don't you?
Me too.
Dr. Rick Knapp, Felicia Combs, I'm Mike Bettis. You're watching Weather Unfiltered. We're going to do Halloween first, then we'll get to Thanksgiving, which won't be far away.
Yeah.
But is it going to stay hot all the way through Thanksgiving at this point? Like, it seems like it.
It seems like it. This would, you know, it would be really hot for Thanksgiving. So let's hope that this isn't what we're going to see heading to Thanksgiving.
Mike is going to be really upset at me when I say this, though. The Caribbean could stay hot with tropical activity all the way through November.
What?
I mean, we've had major hurricanes in the Caribbean in late November before.
I feel like after Milton, we're ready to kiss off hurricane season.
We're ready to
I wish I could cancel the rest of hurricane season, but don't have that power.
I know you're going to talk a little bit more about the tropics coming up.
That's right. For all of those efforts, of course, we've loved the drier air. We've loved the lack of rainfall. But at a certain point, it is like, well, we just need a little bit of rain. We need these temperatures to cool down a little bit. But you can see through next Wednesday, potential record highs everywhere where we have these red dots. So that is, that's a lot of places that could see some records before all is said and done, before we really start to see some of those temperatures cooling down. I mean, look at this. Well, where are we even in the year? It's 86 in Jacksonville, but it's 85 in Nashville right now. Little Rock also in the mid-80s. Houston, I am sorry. You guys are sitting at 88 degrees right now. That is not where you want to be in late October, right? Highs are going to be 10 to 20 degrees above average through that I-10, I-20 corridor as we head into the weekend. 70s for places like OKC and Nashville. Now, as mentioned, we're going to start to see a little dip in the temperature. Some cooler air will make its way southward, but it's not going to make too big of a difference. Here's what's going on. That jet stream is displaced off to the north, and we've got high pressure and control. That keeps us very warm. Now, early next week, we're going to have this dip in the jet stream. That's going to allow some cooler air getting into western portions of the country. But as you push down that one side of the jet stream, lifting up the other side, and the warmth returns across the southern plains all the way up to the Great Lakes. Temperatures on Saturday across the southeast. I wish I had better news for you. I hate to tell you in Houston that you're going to be 90 degrees at the end of October, but that's exactly what's happening. I mean, Atlanta, mid-80s, Raleigh, lower 80s. Watch what happens, though. So Saturday, Nashville, you're getting some of that cooler air. You're in the lower 70s. We watch as that gets just a little bit farther south. So Atlanta, you're going to go from the mid-80s on Saturday to the mid-70s on Sunday. A little bit of a cool down for Raleigh as well, but it's not reaching all the way to the coastal areas. So New Orleans, Houston, you're still stuck in those mid-80s, lower 90s. And of course, sorry, Florida, you guys know you're stuck in that warmth. It's really not changing a whole lot. By Monday, though, watch what happens. We start to see that temperature kind of rebounding in Little Rock and Jacksonville and Nashville. Atlanta, Raleigh, you're still cool, but we will watch as those temperatures ramp back up. Now, in Asheville, we've talked about how dry it's been and how that has been great for those cleanup efforts. I would bet that at a certain point you're hoping for a little bit of rain because it's been dry for so long, but there is none in the forecast. Those temperatures get cooler as we head through Sunday, so you get a little dip in those temperatures, but Mike, they climb right back up for all of those recovery efforts. You know, it's been fantastic weather-wise, but I do think at some point everyone probably is like, oh, we'd like even a little bit of rain here.
Maybe just a maybe a little lunch. Just go for a little hike.
Go for a little hike, and then after that hike, you've earned like the full-on pumpkin spice latte or whatever it is that you bring in.
I'm having a full pumpkin pie.
After that hike, right? Yeah.
Don't just stop at the latte.
Take me to the pie. I actually would pass on pumpkin pie all the time. Not a pumpkin pie girl.
No.
It's the texture.
Is it? It's just too mushy for you?
It's too mushy.
Yeah, I get it.
It's like a chewed banana. How many people did I just ruin pumpkin pie for?
I suddenly like pecan pie so much better now. All right, so gorgeous for you there in the Northeast. There are some areas farther south where you're still holding on.
You were naming out the names of trees and everything. If you need to know about what tree you're looking at, tap into Mike. All right, let's look at what we're looking at weather-wise, because this is a wimpy front. I was watching it yesterday. It looked much the same yesterday when it was trying to move through Minnesota as it does as it's moving slowly eastward. Now, it did bring us some storms during yesterday evening and the nighttime hours, but it's not bringing us a bunch of rain. We just don't have a lot of moisture to work with. I wish I could tell you that you guys are just going to get a blockbuster rainfall here across the Ohio Valley, over through the Appalachians, and it's going to knock out some of that drought, but that's not the case. Now, a bit more rain moving through West Virginia, maybe through the Shenandoah Valley, there across northern Virginia as well. Some rain moving south across Kentucky, but it's really not a huge rainmaker. Going to get some of those showers coming off the lakes, but you see it. It is far and few between. This isn't the type of rain that we need across this region to kind of douse out some of those dry conditions. What it is going to do, though, and I guess we'll take what we can get in terms of silver lining, it's going to knock our temperatures down a bit. So we're going from highs 10 to 20 degrees above average today for places like Cincinnati and Nashville. That front is going to swing through, and it's going to allow some of that cooler air to build in. So by this weekend, you'll notice those temperatures are closer to average, or in some places even a little bit cooler than average across a portion of the Carolinas, up through eastern Pennsylvania, and then up into portions of New England as well. So you'll notice that change a bit. In Syracuse, you've got some rain that's going to move through Saturday. Sunday looks drier. It looks like the drier of the 2 days for your weekend, so keep that in mind as you're planning it out. Monday mostly dry as well. And then in Buffalo, nice pleasant temperatures, a little bit cooler and mostly dry as we head through your weekend. Meanwhile, Mike, though, we're looking somewhere else where it is not quite so dry.
No.
To plan your Halloween outings. Now, are you doing your Halloween outings this weekend? Are you going to do it actually on Halloween? Or are you doing it next weekend? Well, regardless, we're going to take a look at the weather. We were specifically, though, going to look at Halloween Day in case you're trying to get out there, do some trick-or-treating with the kiddos. For a lot of us, we're still going to be seeing above average temperatures, with the exception of the Pacific Northwest, where you're actually going to get some cooler air to build in Thursday, thanks to that dip in the jet stream that's going to be impacting the western portions of the country, 5 to 10 degrees below average. That's where we'll be in the blue for our highs. Meanwhile, you know the story here across the southern plains, the eastern portions of the country, 5 to maybe 20 degrees above average. So those warm temperatures sticking around. You see it here. 80s across the south, 90s if you look really far south into, say, southern Texas. Meanwhile, where we've got some of that cooler air up toward the Pacific Northwest, 30s and 40s there, so you can plan your costume accordingly. Now, some of us are going to have to plan that trick-or-treating time accordingly around the rain, because we are going to have some rain. It's not going to be a complete washout, but you will have to keep an eye on this, especially where we have thunderstorms in the forecast. You know, you could put the rain jacket on and be out in just a little bit of rain. You cannot be out if you've got thunderstorms with lightning and thunder. In Boston, you got some cloud cover hanging around sunset. You're going to be in the upper 60s. Temperatures are going to be really pleasant. It should be a nice Halloween day for you there in Beantown. To Central Florida, Orlando, a few clouds moving through, but overall, a really nice day for your Halloween. But it's going to be in the low upper 70s. You probably want to make sure that you're not wearing, like, you know, the full-on very warm costume. Meanwhile, though, if you're in Chicago, you could get away with one of those costumes that maybe is a little bit warmer. Temperatures in the 50s. I know if you're in Chicago, Mike, that's not cold for you, but it's a little cooler, so you can plan your costume accordingly.
That's not terrible, right? Yeah. Just warming up here in late October. How about a look at the maps here? The heat's boiling over the next few days, but for some of you, especially in the Northeast, little cold fronts coming in, a little cooler air. It's going to feel like fall for a change.
For a couple days.
Yeah, for like a second or two. I think that almost makes it worse. A little taste. It's like when you're on a diet and all you've had is like salad, and then all of a sudden you get a cupcake and you're like, oh, that was great. And then it's like, no, back to salad now.
So on Wednesday, you're going to be tearing that sweater off and throwing it on the ground.
Right,
when am I ever going to really need this?
Yeah.
A lot of people like the cooler weather, and there is some cooler weather for many of you. So we'll talk about that coming up. Thanks for joining us here on Weather Unfiltered. I'm Mike Bettis.
I'm Felicia Combs with Dr. Now, we've got a lot to talk about. Not only is it warmer than it should be, but we are also keeping a close eye on the tropics.
Yeah.
And some of us, a little rain and snow.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Bit's coming our way, but there have been hints across the West, right? We've had snow off and on the last couple of weeks, so it only matters of time before it's a more regular thing.
Yeah, so let's talk about one of the average temperatures and very dry conditions. You know, a lot of people I've talked to are like, we just, you know, just one little sprinkle of rain would be nice at this point. It could stay warm if it wants, but can we get some rain? Or even better yet, get it to cool down and get some rain. Some of us are going to see a little bit of that, but as you can see here, through next Wednesday, a lot of us, more of us, are going to see the potential for record highs. That's what all those red dots are. Then are going to see rain or cool down. Right now, we've got temperatures at 89 in Houston, mid-80s in Nashville and Little Rock. Raleigh, you're sitting at 75. I mean, mid to upper 80s up and down. Florida right now. Into the weekend, we're going to have those highs about 10 to 20 degrees above average. But what you'll notice is we start to see some cooler air build into places like Oklahoma City and Nashville to kind of kick off the weekend a bit. Here's what's going on. We've had high pressure in control of our weather across the south that displaces that jet stream up off to the north. That's keeping that cool air locked farther north as well. Although even up into Canada, there's not a ton of cold air to talk about right now. Now, a little bit cooler, certainly. It will dip down with the jet stream as we head into early next week. That's going to bring the Pacific Northwest down through portions of the Four Corners region, cooler air. But in the meantime, that takes that jet stream right back up over the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, and those temperatures jump right back up as we head through next week for that region because of that pattern that we're stuck in the south. We're staying warm. Okay, so take a look at these temperatures. Atlanta, 86 on Saturday, Raleigh, 81, Nashville, Little Rock, you've gotten a little bit of a cool down in the 70s, in the lower 70s for your Saturday. Sunday, we're still seeing that in Nashville and Little Rock. Meanwhile, Raleigh and Atlanta, you guys get a nice cool down. We get those temperatures to drop a bit. It's a bit more seasonable. Sorry, though, New Orleans over into Houston, mid-80s, lower 90s. That is not what you want for late October, but that's exactly what we're going to have Sunday. Into Monday, staying very warm as well. You'll notice that Nashville begins to warm back up. And Little Rock, you're going from the lower 70s, a really pleasant treat, right back into the upper 80s. I mean, 87 degrees heading into the end part of October in Little Rock is just not what you want at all. This is like summertime weather.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It is. It's
Hurricane season. Now, so far this season, we had a little bit of a lull. I think probably everyone remembers that. Moving through September around to the peak, we watched as our accumulated cyclone energy, or ACE, it's kind of a measurement of the energy that we've had from storms so far this season, dipped below average and then shot well above average. That's where we're sitting now because we've been so active recently. So we've got about 11% of the season left to go. We still have all of November left before hurricane season is technically over. Now, when you're talking late October, you can see some development here in the Central Atlantic and the EMDR, but especially in the Western Caribbean. Into November, we see many of the same areas as storm origin places, especially that Western Caribbean in the Atlantic. Now, watch what happens when you have something that forms in the Western Caribbean. A lot of times, the development area will be here out from the Bahamas, north and east toward Bermuda, and of course, we've seen that a couple times. Now, let's talk about some notable November storms, October-November storms. Hurricane Mitch, you can see it here. This is actually one of the deadliest storms on record in the Atlantic basin. This made landfall in Central America. The fatalities with that up over 11,000 with Hurricane Mitch, and that's before it reemerged and then made another landfall in South Florida. So you don't want to let your guard down.
kind to us. I thought you were going to say pulling out other places, but that's okay.
I'm trying to be here on Monday.
You're a boss. Just remember that, right?
Yeah.
You're a boss. All right, so as far as the weather goes, we've got some ups and downs with the weather.
Yeah.
A few areas where you're going to see some nice cooler weather, fall, enjoyable weather coming in for the weekend. For others of you, it stays summer. Like it just doesn't want to leave.
It's July. Imagine that everything in nature is probably like, what is going on? I mean, I know animals and plants and all of that, they have their own ways of adapting, but like, it's been really warm. I mean, this cool down is not going to stick around for very long. We've got a wimpy front. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It looked a lot like this yesterday at this time. Not a ton of rain. It's not causing a whole lot of action. It's going to bring in a little bit of cooler air, but not a huge change. I wish we could get some more rain out of this. It's just not, there's not enough moisture in the atmosphere for it to work with. You'll get some rain moving across portions of Kentucky, Ohio, over into Northern Virginia as well, but it's certainly not enough to really eradicate that drought or make any big difference in that dry, crispy grass. Not getting a ton of rain as we look across New England, the Northeast either. I mean, you're going to get a shower here or there. You're going to notice a difference. You're going to have some more cloud cover moving through, but it is not going to be like this big change that's sticking around and all of a sudden we flipped the page and we've got rain and we've got fall temperatures. That's not what's happening. It's just like a little doink rather than like a longer doink, I guess. I don't know where I'm going with that. But yeah, so today we've got a cold front that is going to move through. It's going to impact the highs that are above average. That description didn't go the way that I thought it was going to. Anyways, this weekend we've got temperatures that are going to be falling to near or below average. Where you see the blue, that's where we're going to have some below average action happening, but it does not stick around very long, Mike. For a place like Syracuse, though, you got a little rain around on Saturday, Sunday into Monday, a mix of sun and clouds, so not bad. But as we look farther west, a bigger doink in terms of rain and snow.
What did you call me?
No, not you. I was talking about the weather pattern. This keeps getting worse.
Oh, goodness, right? It's okay.
You plan your Halloween outings. Now, are you doing your Halloween outings this weekend? Are you going to do it actually on Halloween? Or are you doing it next weekend? Well, regardless, we're going to take a look at the weather. We were specifically, though, going to look at Halloween Day in case you're trying to get out there, do some trick-or-treating with the kiddos. For a lot of us, we're still going to be seeing above average temperatures with the exception of the Pacific Northwest, where you're actually going to get some cooler air to build in Thursday thanks to that dip in the jet stream that's going to be impacting the western portions of the country. 5 to 10 degrees below average. That's where we'll be in the blue for our highs. Meanwhile, you know the story here across the southern plains, the eastern portions of the country, 5 to maybe 20 degrees above average. So those warm temperatures sticking around. You see it here, 80s across the south, 90s if you look really far south into, say, southern Texas. Meanwhile, where we've got some of that cooler air up toward the Pacific Northwest, 30s and 40s there, so you can plan your costume accordingly. Now, some of us are going to have to plan that trick-or-treating time accordingly around the rain, because we are going to have some rain. It's not going to be a complete washout, but you will have to keep an eye on this, especially where we have thunderstorms in the forecast. You know, you could put the rain jacket on and be out in just a little bit of rain. You cannot be out if you've got thunderstorms with lightning and thunder. In Boston, you got some cloud cover hanging around sunset. You're going to be in the upper 60s. Temperatures are going to be really pleasant. It should be a nice Halloween day for you there in Beantown. To Central Florida, Orlando, a few clouds moving through, but overall, a really nice day for your Halloween. But it's going to be in the lower 80s, upper 70s. You probably want to make sure that you're not wearing, like, you know, the full-on very warm costume. Meanwhile, though, if you're in Chicago, you could get away with one of those costumes a little bit warmer. Temperatures in the 50s. I know if you're in Chicago, that's not like cold for you, but it's a little cooler, so you can plan your costume accordingly.
That's not terrible, right? Yeah. It could be a lot. I'm serious. Are you serious? They're still warming up. Let's go later in the year. They're warming up. It's late October. Look at these maps. Look how many people have above average temperatures the next few days here. The Northeast, although, yeah, I'll be brief, you're going to have a nice weekend. Cool down.
When you just said look at these maps, I thought you were about to say look at these wimps, because Dave and I were just talking about how we like that it's still really warm outside.
The way this October is going is producing a lot of debates, because with the ups and downs in temperatures and with a lot of ups more for this time of year than you used to, people are arguing over whether they like it staying warmer later. Yeah. And who's wimpier, the people who can't stand the cold or people who can't stand the heat?
Yeah.
It's a debate.
You guys were talking about biking like this weekend, and you said if it gets into the 70s, it's too cold.
It's too cold.
Like there's a wind chill?
But I mean,
the 80s are perfect.
I pedal my bike really fast. I don't know about you, but that wind gets going at 70.
So that run I did this morning in the 40s is not for you. Is that what you're saying?
Hurts the
with me one day.
I'll go with you in the 40s once if you go with me in the 90s.
I don't know. Our thermostats are definitely polar opposites at this point. Dr. Rick Knapp, Felicia Combs, I'm Mike Bettis. Thanks for joining us here on Weather Unfiltered. The great debate rolls on, right? Roller coaster temperatures for us this
big
month.
time.
And, you know, some of us are going to get a little bit of a dip in the temperatures. It's not